They say Blackwood High was just a school, but I know the truth because I've seen its walls bleed and I've heard it whisper my name in the dark. My name is James Miller. I'm 52 years old, and for more than 2 decades I worked as a janitor. Most of those years were spent at Blackwood High, a red brick fortress of a building that had stood for almost a century. By day, it was chaos. Kids slammed lockers, sneakers squeaked against wax tiles, teachers shouted to be heard above the noise. But at night, it became something else. Hollow, breathing, watching. I used to tell myself the creaks and groans were nothing more than the old place settling. Pipes rattled, windows rattled, heating ducts moaned in the dark. That's all it was, just a tired old school. But deep down, I knew better. Blackwood had a pulse of its own. It was late October, the kind of night when the wind pushed dead leaves against the windows and rattled the chain-link fence around the football field. Frank, the other janitor, had called in sick, which meant I was stuck covering the late shift. Ramirez, the security guard, usually stayed until midnight, but he'd gone home early too. That left me alone. I started in the main hallway, mop bucket squeaking over polished tiles. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, throwing long shadows across the lockers. The air smelled like bleached chalk dust and faintly of something sweet, almost rotten. I had just dumped the mop when I heard it, a metallic slam. I froze. The sound had been sharp, echoing down the empty corridor. It was the unmistakable sound of a locker door. My mop slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. My chest tightened as I strained to listen. "Hello?" I called, my voice cracking. It carried down the corridor, bouncing off the walls before fading into silence. Then came a hollow, deliberate bounce. A basketball rolled lazily from the shadows. Thump, thump, thump. It came to a stop at my feet. My stomach dropped. The gym was locked tight. I'd locked it myself. My hand shook as I bent to pick it up. The ball was warm to the touch, almost damp. And just as my fingers brushed it, another sound drifted through the air. Music, a piano, soft notes. Slow, deliberate, echoing through the darkened halls. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The music department had been moved years ago. There was no piano in this building anymore. And yet, the notes were real, clear and chilling. They came from the auditorium. I left the mop and bucket behind, creeping down the hallway. The double doors to the auditorium stood cracked open, and the stage curtains swayed though the air was still. The smell hit me first, dust, mildew, and something else. Something coppery. I pushed the doors open. The piano stopped. And then a whisper. Joms. My name, drawn out, soft, coming from everywhere at once. The rafters, the stage, the rows of empty seats. My knees nearly buckled. I fumbled for my key ring, the metal jingling loudly in my shaking hands. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun, heart hammering. Shapes flickered across the shadows. Tall, thin figures swaying unnaturally. Their faces were pale blurs, mouths gaping wider than they should. I yanked the doors open and stumbled back into the hallway. That's when I saw him. Frank, or at least something that looked like Frank. He stood at the far end of the corridor, his head tilted at an impossible angle, like his neck had been broken. His arms dangled too long, fingertips nearly brushing the floor. His shirt was torn and dark with stains. "Frank," I whispered. He didn't answer. He only raised one hand, slowly, deliberately, pointing straight at me. Then the lights flickered, and he was gone. I staggered back, my breath ragged. That's when I heard hurried footsteps and nearly collided with Miss Calloway, one of the teachers. She clutched a stack of papers to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. "James," she whispered. "You hear it too, don't you?" Before I could answer, the lockers along the hall banged open in unison. One after another, doors slammed wide, the metallic echo deafening. Ms. Calloway screamed and bolted down the hall. I chased after her, desperate not to be alone. But the lights flickered again, and she was gone. The hallway stretched impossibly long, endless, twisting. The smell hit me then. Blood. It dripped from the ceiling tiles, streaking the walls. Handprints smeared across the lockers, clawing downward as if people had dragged themselves along the surface. I gagged, stumbling backward. A soft whisper slithered into my ears. "Stay." The word was layered, dozens of voices, some high, some low, all speaking at once. "Stay with us." The air grew colder. My breath puffed out in white clouds. I turned and sprinted toward the exit doors. They slammed shut just as I reached them, the crash shaking the glass. I fumbled with my keys, sobbing, but behind me the piano began again. Louder, violent. Each chord rattled my bones. The blood on the walls pulsed with the music, streaks spreading into words. "Stay with U.S. James." I screamed, forcing the key into the lock. The doors gave way and I burst into the night. Cold air hit my face, but just before I cleared the threshold, I felt it, a hand, thin, cold, wet, resting on my shoulder. I ran until Blackwood was only a silhouette against the stars. I didn't look back. The next morning, I returned with the staff. Daylight made the school look ordinary again, but the main hallway told a different story. Every locker stood wide open, and inside the one closest to where I'd left my mop, words had been scratched deep into the steel. Not once, not twice, dozens of times. James, James, James. The letters were carved so deep the metal had curled inward. Frank never came back to work. Ms. Calloway stopped showing up too. Some said they left town. I knew better. Blackwood had taken them. And sometimes, late at night, when I drive past the school, I see the faint glow of the auditorium lights. And if I roll down my window, I hear it, the piano, playing my name in blood. It was a Tuesday night around 2 a.m. when I first heard it. I was polishing the floor in Ward C. The wheels of my cart squeaked as I pushed it along. My mop slid across the tiles in slow strokes. Nothing unusual. Then I froze. Children's laughter, faint, high-pitched, echoing down the corridor. At first, I thought maybe a family was visiting late. But visiting hours ended hours ago, and children weren't allowed past midnight. I left my mop against the wall and stepped forward, listening hard. The lights flickered above, buzzing like flies. The sound came again, closer. My breath caught in my chest. "Hello?" I called. No answer, just the soft, fading giggles of a child who shouldn't exist. I pushed my cart forward, its wheels squealing too loud in the silence. The corridor stretched long and empty until I turned the corner. Nobody was there, but the windows told a different story. Tiny handprints smeared across the glass. Small palms pressed hard, dragged downward, leaving streaks as though a child had clawed to get out. Fresh. I swallowed hard and grabbed my radio. "Mark, you there?" I called, reaching for the other janitor. Static. "Mark, come on. Pick up." Silence. The radio crackled once, then died. That's when I heard it, coming from behind me, a noise from room 9. Everyone at St. Mary's knew room 9. It had been locked for months. Patients avoided it. Nurses refused to step inside. Even the doctors walked faster when passing it. I stood in front of the tarnished number on the door, frozen. A faint creaking sound came from the other side, like a bed rocking slowly back and forth. My chest tightened as I fumbled with the keys. The lock clicked. The door groaned open. The smell hit me first. Stale dust, disinfectant, and something sour rotting beneath. One bed remained inside, and it was moving, rocking gently, squeaking with each shift. Empty. Nobody near it. My skin prickled as a whisper drifted through the air. Play with me? I froze, heart hammering. The lights buzzed, flickered, and went out. The door slammed behind me. My hand shook violently as I clawed for the handle. The room turned ice cold, my breath misting in the air. Something brushed against my arm. Small, light, like the fingers of a child. Play with me. The voice hissed again, this time right at my ear. I yanked the door open and bolted into the hall. My cart toppled behind me with a deafening crash. I didn't stop running until I reached the nurse's station. The next morning, I asked one of the nurses about room 9. Her expression stiffened. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. A little girl died in there, years ago, all alone. Her words dug deep into me. And that wasn't the last time I saw her. The hauntings grew worse. Some nights, the intercom speakers hissed static before faint giggles echoed through them. One night, a child's voice whispered, "Carlos, my name." Another time, the elevator at the far end of Ward C opened on its own. The door slid apart with a groan. Inside, bloody handprints smeared across the walls. Small ones. The doors closed slowly, sealing them inside. I told myself I'd quit, but rent doesn't pay itself. I stayed. That was my mistake. About a month later, I was cleaning the surgical wing. The hall smelled of sharp antiseptic, strong enough to sting. I was alone when the swinging doors slammed shut behind me. I spun around. They were moving slowly, like someone had just passed through. "Mark." I whispered. No answer. I pushed them open. The operating theater beyond was empty, dark, but the table in the center glistened wet. I stepped closer, my shoes sticking to floor. Blood. Fresh, dark blood smeared across the table, dripping onto the tiles, seeping into the drain. I staggered back, choking on fear. I blinked, and it was gone. The table spotless. "Carlos." The whisper slid across the darkness. "Play with me?" I wasn't the only one. One night, a security guard named Paul stopped me. His face was pale, eyes darting. "You been hearing stuff?" he muttered. "Like kids." I nodded slowly. He exhaled shakily. "Last night I saw her. Little girl. White dress. Running down the corridor. When I followed, his voice dropped. She ran straight into room 9 and vanished. He quit the next week. I should have done the same. The night it all came to a head, I was mopping near the morgue. The morgue was the worst. The air pressed heavy, the freezers humming with the silence of the dead. Bang. I froze. One of the freezer doors rattled violently. Bang, bang. I dropped the mop, heart racing. The door flew open. The tray slid out. A small body lay beneath the sheet. The fabric shifted, and a small hand pressed up against it. I stumbled back, nearly falling. My chest heaved. Then darkness. When I turned, I was no longer in the morgue. I was back in Ward C, in front of room 9. The door creaked open by itself. Inside, faint light flickered. Blood smeared across the walls in dripping letters. Play with me. The lights above shattered one by one, plunging the corridor into darkness. The door slammed shut behind me. My radio screeched static. Then a child's voice hissed through. "Don't leave me alone again." Something grabbed my wrist. Small, ice cold. I screamed and ripped free, tearing the door open and sprinting down the hall. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I didn't stop until I hit the lobby doors and burst into night air. I never went back. I didn't collect my paycheck. I didn't grab my things. I quit, and to this day, I will never set foot in a hospital after dark, because I know what waits there, and it still wants to play. My name's Robert Hayes, though everyone back then called me Bobby. For most of my life, I worked maintenance at an old steel factory on the edge of town. It wasn't the kind of job people dreamed about, but it put food on the table. The place was older than me, older than my father, maybe even older than my grandfather. Built in the 1920s, it had survived wars, economic crashes, and more than a few deadly accidents. The town lived off its steel, and so did we, but the factory carried scars. Men had died there, lots of men, crushed beneath the weight of machines bigger than houses, burned alive when molten steel spilled like lava, sliced open by gears the size of trucks. Some deaths were accidents. Others, well, nobody liked to talk about them. Management never admitted it, but the basement was the worst. Everyone hated going down there. Too many shadows, too many echoes. The kind of silence that isn't really silent. It's listening. That basement wasn't just where machines broke down. It was where men broke too. And one stormy night, I found out why. The rain hammered the tin roof so hard it sounded like gunfire. Lightning rattled the glass windows, and the whole building seemed to tremble. Water was seeping in through old pipes and drains, flooding the basement. I was on the night shift, and my supervisor told me to head down and clean it up. I didn't argue. You don't argue with your boss when your paycheck depends on it. Still, I wasn't happy about it. Nobody was. The stairwell groaned under my boots as I descended. The deeper I went, the colder it got, until I could see my own breath. My flashlight beam shook against the concrete walls, catching glimpses of rust, stains, and something darker I didn't want to name. The smell hit me halfway down. Damp air, sour like rot. Old metal, old blood. When I reached the basement floor, water pooled around my boots. The drip, drip, drip echoed like a heartbeat. I should have only heard water, but there was something else. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Raspy. Like someone waiting in the dark. My light swung toward the far corner and froze. There was someone crouched there. A figure. Broad shoulders hunched forward, twitching slightly, head bowed. His back was to me. His body glistened like it was wet with oil or grease. "Hey!" I called, my voice cracking. "You're not supposed to be down here." He didn't move, didn't even flinch. My mop bucket rolled across the floor by itself, wheels squeaking. It tipped over with a splash. I spun, startled, and when I turned back, the figure was gone. My heart hammered in my throat. My flashlight beam swept the walls, the pipes, the shadows. That's when I saw them. Handprints, greasy, black, and fresh, smearing across the concrete walls, dragging downward like someone had clawed their way into shadows. The air thickened. Whispers rose all around me. Not one voice, dozens. Men's voices overlapping, speaking in words I couldn't understand. My ears rang. My knees went weak. Then came the footsteps. Fast, wet, slapping against the concrete, circling me. I spun, shining the light in every direction. Nothing there. Nothing I could see. Anyway, the machines groaned to life. One by one, their gears shrieked, their belts whined. Sparks burst from rusted steel. The smell of burning oil filled the air, but the power had been cut hours ago, and in the flicker of sparks, I saw them, faces pressed into the steel, distorted mouths open in silent screams, eyes bulging, melting into the metal. God! I stumbled back, dropping my wrench. It clattered to the ground, echoing like a gunshot. The whispers grew louder, the breathing closer. Something wet splashed near my boots. Blood, dark, thick blood oozing from the machines, running along the floor, soaking into the water. I gagged. My flashlight fizz flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed me whole. I ran. I don't even remember which way. My boots splashed, my breath tore through my chest. Whispers clawed at my ears. Bobby, my name, drawn out, mocking. The stairwell door slammed shut ahead of me. I slammed into it, pounding with my fists. It wouldn't budge. Behind me, the machine shrieked. Chains rattled. Something heavy dragged across the floor. I turned. Through the darkness, shapes emerged. Workers, or what used to be workers. Their faces were burned, twisted, their overalls soaked in blood and oil. Some were missing arms, others legs, their bodies fused with jagged pieces of steel. Their eyes glowed faintly, hollow and dead. One by one, they lurched toward me. I clawed at the door handle, sobbing. My flashlight sputtered back to life for a split second, and in that moment, I saw the crouching figure again. Right behind them, his head snapped upward, his face. It wasn't a face, just a mass of melted flesh, steel rivets jutting from the skin. His mouth gaped open wider than any human should. The voices screamed all at once. My flashlight burst. I don't know how, but the door finally gave way. I screamed, waiting.